Now, there is new testimony coming up in the Jason Young murder trial. It should begin any minute in Raleigh, North Carolina. Once court begins, we will take you there live. But first, let's talk about the case so far with international defense attorney Meg Strickler. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Meg. You know, it was quite a day in the courtroom. Some say how salacious to put all these women on the stand. But the prosecutor has a plan, and they say that that has to do with the motives of Jason Young. Meg?
Yeah, they went through a lot more detail in this case now, in this trial, to show every little thing about this Mr. Young that's not really all that great. He has been with many different women with lots of different stories of what a not nice guy he is. And the prosecution is doing a very good job of getting much more specific about the context of the marriage now and what happened in his past. And they want to make sure that they do this trial correctly.
You know, in North Carolina, this is 404B evidence, everybody, which is similar transactions, prior bad acts. And North Carolina, from my experience, has been pretty liberal in allowing things like this in, because yesterday we heard things that happened in the 90s so remotely to this trial, but the judge allowed it in. Whether it means he murdered Michelle Young or not, well, that's for a jury, and this, of course, is a circumstantial case. Meg Strickler, what do you think about the shoe print testimony that jurors heard yesterday?
Well, I think the prosecution needs to watch out on what they're doing, because what they're doing is trying, like I said, make Mr. Young look like a bad guy, but then they're trying to bring in some forensic evidence, which there isn't much in this case, period. So you bring this shoe print and this tire tread, it's not enough. If I'm sitting as a juror there, I'm going to think, okay, wait a minute. I watch a lot of CSI. I'm not seeing any direct evidence. Yes, Mr. Young's a bad guy, but did he do this? I'm going to sentence this person to murder? No, I don't see much. I don't think that lab person testifying about the shoe print really did hold much for the prosecution at all.
Seems like it. You know, this obviously is a circumstantial case, so direct evidence sometimes is not front and center, sometimes not at all. When you look at the prosecution's case so far, what's the strongest evidence? I mean, is it the gas attendant that said that night he was there getting gas, pumping up, because that is very inconsistent with his story?
Well, the problem with the gas station attendant is, again, if I'm thinking about how much TV I watch, I'm a juror, everything's now on camera. Most gas stations and whatnot have video cameras that show everything. So that's not exactly strong evidence. The strongest evidence here is simply doing the, does this pass the smell test? And that is, Jason Young and all his story about the Hampton Inn and whatnot don't really fit, and then the camera not working and all that. Those are, it's not direct evidence, but you think, okay, we already have great evidence that the guy is not a nice guy. We already have great evidence that while he's at this Hampton Inn, weird things are happening to cameras. That's enough to kind of make me go, And then who else broke into this house and killed Michelle Young? All those things are enough, I think. That's the strongest evidence, is just what doesn't fit in the sense of who else would have done this and left poor Cassidy sitting there alive.
It's a tough case, and I think that's why they're having to retry it. You know, yesterday everybody on the stand were a bevy of women, one being a legitimate fiancé of Jason Young's in the past, but also was this shoe evidence. We want you to listen to some of the direct testimony of Agent Michael Smith. He's with the FBI, the lab division, shoe print and tire thread. Listen to this and see what you think. All right, I don't think we have that right now. Meg Strickler, I want to go back to you, because so much has been made of just the lack of forensics. It goes with the shoe prints, the tire treads that are just sort of iffy in a sense. And there were no scratches on Jason Young at all that we know of, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great case for the defense. I love closing arguments. When I do them, it's the most passionate time when you're arguing a case, and I could really go nuts on this case and say, where's the smoking gun, so to speak? There's nothing here. You can't convict him. Go back in that jury room and look for direct evidence. Where is all the basic DNA evidence? Yes, they live together, so some of that stuff is mixed together. But when you have normal murders, you can have a lot more evidence here, and there's none. Zero, zippo, and that's what I would just hammer in. And I do think that they're not going to win. The prosecution's not. It's going to be either a hung jury or acquittal.
But here's the thing, when jurors begin to deliberate, they're going to say, just something's not right here. He goes to this hotel, he checks in, he leaves, he positions a stone, was it, on the door so you don't have the ingress and egress monitored at all. It's just not going to sit right with them. They're going to want to convict him, Meg.
I do think, and what happens with juries, and it's fascinating, whenever you interview jurors after a case, they hang their hook on a multitude of different things, things that none of us ever predict or think of. So one of the things, to me, if I was the juror, that I thought kind of said, ooh, was the whole discussion about smoking. Why are we putting a stone in the door to go out and have a cigar, but yet he doesn't smoke? That doesn't make sense. Those kind of things make me go back and say, legally, I can convict. That is direct, not I won't say direct, but it's evidence that says, okay, that's for real, that didn't make sense, I can hang my hook on that, he did it.
And we will see, everyone, we've got live action in North Carolina. Let's take you in live.